Hi there, and welcome to Ben's Voice Narrative. In today's class, we're going to consider the difference between demonstrative adjectives and demonstrative pronouns. Now, making this video based on the comment I got on two of my previous videos, and these were the videos where I talked about demonstrative adjectives separately and demonstrative pronouns also separately. And although I had briefly mentioned the difference that exists between these two subjects, in one of the videos they referred to in that comment, today we'll be focusing on the major differences between these two concepts, demonstrative adjectives and demonstrative pronouns. And if you want to have a full understanding of what demonstrative adjectives are and what demonstrative pronouns are, I advise that you go check out these two videos I am talking about by going to the Ben's English Lab, Ben's English Lab playlist. There, you're going to find these two videos on demonstrative adjectives and demonstrative pronouns. But of course, today's class is primarily on the differences that exist between these two concepts. So let's get to the class right away. Now, we'll be looking at the differences between demonstrative adjectives and demonstrative pronouns on two grounds. The first is on structural ground. And secondly, we're looking at the differences between these two concepts on functional ground. That is, we'll consider the structure of demonstrative adjectives, then we'll consider the structure of demonstrative pronouns in a sentence or in sentences, and with that, and from the structure, we get to understand what the difference is or what the difference is. And after considering the difference based on structural ground, we then proceed to the functional differences between these two concepts. So let's consider the structural differences or the structural difference between these two concepts. Now let's look at this sentence. This apple belongs to me. Belongs to me. This belongs to me. That apple belongs to me. 4. That belongs to me. Okay. Now let's underline this, that. Of course, you know that we have 4 demonstrative adjectives and we have 4 demonstrative pronouns. These 4 examples are the same under the pronoun and the adjective. The 4 demonstrative adjectives are this, that, these, and those. And the 4 demonstrative pronouns are also this, that, these, and those. However, in terms of structure, let's look at this first example. This apple belongs to me. This apple belongs to me. Here, this is a demonstrative adjective. I'm going to be representing demonstrative adjectives with demon. So demon add, demonstrative adjective. Look at, once we have this, we have a noun, this apple. Now this is describing the apple. This apple. So for you to have a demonstrative adjective in a sentence, structurally, you should have a noun come after it. This apple. So this is a demonstrative adjective. Structurally, you're going to have the demonstrative and then you're going to have a noun. This apple, this girl, this house, this board belongs to me. So you have structurally the demonstrative, this, and then you're going to have the noun following after it. So in other words, demonstrative adjectives are words, they're adjectives that describe, that modify a noun. They point out or they point to noun. So you mentioned the demonstrative, this, and then structurally a noun must follow. Okay. So this apple belongs to me. That is a demonstrative adjective. Why is it demonstrative? Because it is pointing at something. This apple. So structurally, a demonstrative adjective must attract a noun because adjectives describe nouns. Adjectives describe nouns. So this apple. This is a noun, and this demonstrative is pointing to this noun, apple. So that is why structurally we must have a noun come after the demonstrative. So let's go to second example. This belongs to me. Oh, what are we talking about here? This belongs to me. I don't even know what this stands for. But of course, I do know that this pronoun stands for something. Remember that pronouns are words you use to replace nouns. The words we use instead of nouns. So this belongs to me. What is that thing? It is something that I don't know. But of course, I'm just saying this that I can touch. This thing belongs to me. This. What is that thing? This. What belongs to me? This. Did you understand? So structurally, the demonstrative pronoun does not have or does not attract a noun. It simply stands alone, representing the noun. You don't have to mention the noun. So you just simply say, this belongs to me. Look at the structure. Here, demon, pronoun. Demon pro. So this is demon pro. So the this in this place, in the second example, is a demonstrative pronoun. Why? The reason is, the demonstrative pronoun does not attract a noun. It simply replaces the noun. The demonstrative adjective must attract the noun because it has to point, it must describe, it must modify the noun. That apple, that door, use that door. Which door? That door. Use this. Use this. Why should I use this? What should I use? This. Now, I don't want to mention what I want you to use, but I'm already using a pronoun to represent what I want you to use. That is structurally what a demonstrative pronoun does. A demonstrative pronoun does not mention the noun, it replaces the noun. Demonstrative adjective structurally must attract the noun. So you must have the demonstrative and you must have the noun. This apple, this door, that door, these doors. So you mention the demonstrative and then you mention the noun for demonstrative adjectives. But for demonstrative pronouns, you don't mention the noun. Rather, the pronoun, the demonstrative replaces the noun. This is mine. Use this. This is my answer. This is my answer. What's my answer? This. Not that answer is mine. Demonstrative adjective will be like, that answer is mine. Which answer? That answer is mine. Now, but demonstrative pronoun will be like, this is mine, without mentioning the answer. So let's go to example number 3. That apple belongs to me. What belongs to me? That apple. That one. That apple. So structurally, this is a demonstrative adjective. Remember, the demonstrative adjective must attract the noun. Okay. And here, number 4, that belongs to me. What belongs to me? That. So that in this place is not a demonstrative adjective. It is a demonstrative pronoun. Why? It is replacing the noun being talked about. What? Something belongs to me. What is that thing? That. What belongs to me? That. That belongs to me. So that here does not even attract a noun. So that is why it is a demonstrative. That is why it is a demonstrative pronoun. Remember, structurally, demonstrative adjectives must mention the noun being pointed to. Whereas the demonstrative pronouns don't mention the noun. You simply mention the demonstrative and you go to the verb. Okay, that belongs to me. Those are my friends. Who are my friends? Those. So structurally, the demonstrative adjective must attract a noun. That is, it must attract the noun it wants to modify. Whereas the demonstrative pronouns does not mention the noun being referred to. Okay? It simply replaces the noun. It simply replaces the noun. So let's go. So that is that about the structural difference between demonstrative adjectives and demonstrative pronouns. So we go to the second ground of difference. The second way to consider the difference or the differences between demonstrative adjectives and demonstrative pronouns. So the second ground is functional. Number two, functional ground. Functional difference. Functional difference. Okay. The functional difference. Now, by functional differences or by functional difference, I'm talking about the role being performed by each of these concepts. The roles of the demonstrative adjectives and the roles of the demonstrative pronouns. In terms of functional differences, there is not much to talk about on the demonstrative adjectives, whereas we have a lot to talk about under the demonstrative pronouns. Okay. Now, in terms of function, the demonstrative adjective only performs the function of an adjective. And what is the function of an adjective? An adjective describes a noun. It modifies a noun. It qualifies a noun. So, demonstrative adjectives only perform the function of adjective, which is simply just to modify, to qualify a noun. And under this functional difference, we have the structural difference still come into play. So let's have an example. That house is mine. That house is mine. Which house is mine? Is it this house? No. Are you talking about those houses? No, I mean that house. So that here is a demonstrative adjective because it's pointing, it's modifying, it's describing the house that I am referring to. It's pointing to the specific house that I have in mind, how that belongs to me. I mean, that house is mine. So functionally, demonstrative adjectives only perform the function of adjectives, which is simply to identify, to modify, to describe a noun. So whatever. So when you have a demonstrative that describes or modifies a noun, that simply is a demonstrative adjective. So now that you know that functionally, a demonstrative adjective describes, points at a noun, modifies a noun. Let's consider the functions of the demonstrative pronouns. Okay, remember this is an example for the demonstrative adjectives. Demonstrative adjective. Okay, that house is mine. Which house is mine? Which house are you talking about? That. So the demonstrative adjective, in other words, answers the question which. 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 So when the demonstrative answers the question which, then we know that you're talking about a demonstrative adjective. Which house are you talking about? That house. Which boy are you talking about? I mean, this boy, not that one, this one. Which boy? Which classroom? That classroom. Which board? This board. Which girls? Those girls. So when you ask the question which, the demonstrative that gives the answer, that answers that question is a demonstrative adjective. Which are you talking about? That. So that is that about the function of demonstrative adjectives. So let's proceed to the function of the demonstrative pronoun. In terms of function, these two concepts perform different functions. While demonstrative adjectives perform the functions of an adjective, demonstrative pronouns will perform mostly the functions of a noun. So every role that a noun can perform in a sentence is the role that a demonstrative pronoun can also perform. Although it would be wrong to say that a demonstrative pronoun performs all the functions of a noun. Don't get me wrong. It's not possible. It is not linguistically possible for demonstrative pronouns to perform all the functions of a noun. But right now, we're considering all the functions of a demonstrative pronouns. Don't forget that a demonstrative adjective only modifies, only points, only describes a noun. It points to a noun. It points out a noun. Demonstrative pronouns will function where a noun will mostly function. Okay. Now, we all know that a noun can function as the subject of a sentence. A noun can function as a subject of a sentence. So let's have an example. A, this is my friend. Remember that the subject of a sentence can be the performer of an action in a sentence or what the sentence is talking about. So what is this sentence talking about? It's talking about my friend. And who is my friend here? This. We're talking about this. What are we talking about? This. And what is this? My friend, okay? So this is my friend. This here is a demonstrative pronoun because it is functioning as the subject of this sentence. Okay, let's consider another example under the function of a demonstrative pronoun. That is the function as the subject of a sentence. So we have those were interesting, those were friendly. Those were friendly. Who were friendly? Who were the people that were friendly? Those. Now, we don't have to say those girls, those boys. If you say those boys, those becomes demonstrative adjective. But in this case, we're simply saying those were friendly. Who were the people who were friendly? Or who was friendly? Those were friendly. Those in this case is representing something. It's representing some people or certain individuals. So those were friendly. Those here is the subject of the sentence and it is realized by a demonstrative pronoun. So that's the first function of a demonstrative pronoun. It functions as the subject of a sentence. A demonstrative adjective cannot function alone as the subject of a sentence, for it can only modify the subject of a sentence. Again, demonstrative adjectives cannot stand alone as the subject of a sentence. Rather, it will only describe the subject of a sentence. Do we understand that? So that is the difference between demonstrative adjective and demonstrative pronoun in terms of functioning as the subject of a sentence. Demonstrative adjectives don't function as the subject of a sentence, whereas demonstrative pronouns will function alone as the subject of a sentence. Why? The reason is most of the functions performed by a noun will be performed by demonstrative pronouns. So those were friendly. This is my friend. This, I'm talking about this. I'm talking about those. So that is that about demonstrative pronouns functioning as the subject of a sentence. Now, we know also that a noun can function as the object of a sentence. And of course, the subject of a sentence is the receiver of an action in a sentence. So the receiver of an action, which could be the direct object or the indirect object. And of course, you know the direct object is the object that suffers directly from an object, from an action, whereas the indirect object benefits or gains from an action. But that is not a business in this class. The business is that we understand that a demonstrative pronoun can as well function as the receiver, the recipient of an action performed in a sentence, whereas a demonstrative adjective cannot function as the object of a sentence. Let's consider examples. Object of sentence. Object of a sentence. Object of a sentence. Okay, here's an example. She gave me this when I visited her. I see with your frame. Very good. When I visited her. She gave me this when I visited her. What's the subject of the sentence? She. That's the person performing. What's the action performed? Gave. Who did she give something to? Me. What did she give me? She gave me this. Now, me in this place is an indirect object, but we don't care about that. We'll care about the function of this. She gave me this when I visited her. What did she give me? She gave me this. So this is the direct object, D-O. D-O, direct object. She gave me this. when I visited her. We don't care about this last part of the sentence. What we care about is the function of this. She gave me this. What did she give me? What can be given to you is an object of a sentence. Okay, so in this case, this here is a demonstrative pronoun and not a demonstrative adjective. Remember, a demonstrative adjective can never stand alone to function as an object of a sentence. Rather, it can only even describe the object of a sentence. It can't stand alone. Only the demonstrative pronoun can stand alone. She gave me this. She gave me that. What this is, you don't know. What this is, I don't have to talk about it. It can be anything. This here can substitute, can replace, can be used instead of anything. It could be maybe a microphone. It could be food. It could be car. It could be bottle. It could be just everything you can imagine. She gave me this. What did she give me? This. So this here is a demonstrative pronoun and not a demonstrative adjective. Demonstrative adjectives can never function as the object of a sentence. Demonstrative adjectives can never function as the subject of a sentence. Rather, they can only modify the subject of a sentence. Whereas demonstrative pronouns can function as the subject, demonstrative pronouns can function alone as the object of a sentence. So let's go to another function or functional difference between demonstrative adjectives and demonstrative pronouns. Remember, the demonstrative adjectives only and only functions as the modifier, the describer, the qualifier, the describer of a noun. So let's go to the third function of the demonstrative pronoun. C, object complement. Object complement. Remember that one of the functions of a noun or noun phrase or noun clause is that a noun phrase, a noun clause can function as object complement. Object complement. What's an object complement? An object complement is a noun phrase or a noun that means the same thing as the object of a sentence. So if you read through a sentence and then you see an item, an element that means the same, that means the same thing as the object of a sentence, then that thing is object complement. And of course, only nouns and pronouns can function as object complement. Demonstrative adjectives cannot function as object complement. For something to be an object complement, it has to be a pronoun or a noun. So for something to be an object complement, it does not have to be an adjective. So an adjective cannot function as object complement. Only nouns, only pronouns can. So let's have an example. I made her into this. Really? Who made her into this? Who made her to become this? I made her to become this. Maybe she became a governor, she became a teacher, she became a friend, she became lovely, she became more friendly. So I made her into this, into what she had become now, into who she had become now, into what she is now. So I made her into this. Now, I is the subject of the sentence, made is the verb, which is the predicator. Who did I make? I made her. What have I made this person into? What have I made her to become? Shall become this. So this is the same thing as her. Her is the same thing or is the same identity as this. I made her into this. Okay, so this is not a demonstrative adjective. Rather, it is simply a demonstrative pronoun. Here is another example. We turned that iron, that iron into that over there. Am I still within frame? Yes. Into that over there. We turn that iron into that over there. We, the subject, okay? Turn, the verb. What did we turn? What did we turn into something? We turned that iron. that iron. We turn that iron. That in this case is a demonstrative adjective, still describing the iron. We turn that iron. Okay, so that iron is the direct object. Okay, we turn that iron. Like I slapped that iron, I shaped that iron, I bent that iron, I forged that iron. That here is a demonstrative adjective because it's describing this now. So this is the object of the sentence. We turn that iron. Now, what do we turn this iron into? We turn that iron into that over there. What that is, you don't know. It will be that car or that cylinder or that tin, T-I-N, tin. So that here is a phenomenon that means the same thing as the iron. So the iron has turned to that. It has turned to that thing. But I don't have to mention the name of that thing. I'm simply saying that we turn that iron into this. We turn that iron into that. That you're seeing over there is what you've turned the iron into. So this is another way we can look at the difference between the demonstrative adjective and the demonstrative pronoun, in that the demonstrative adjective cannot function as the complement, as object complement. So only nouns, only demonstrative pronouns can function as object complement. In this case, we have other linguistic elements that can function as object complement, as subject complement, but in this case, demonstrative pronouns can function as object complement. Demonstrative adjectives cannot function as object complement. So number four, and that is the penultimate point. We're about to wrap up. So another function of the demonstrative pronoun is that it can function as subject, of course, subject complement. Okay, a subject complement. Remember that the subject complement is another item, another element in a sentence that means the same thing as the subject of sentence. So subject complement. 1. My answer was this. Full stop. My answer was this. My answer was that. My friend was that. My friend were those. Now, if you want to have a demonstrative pronoun function as the subject of a sentence, okay, all that you have to do to have a demonstrative pronoun function as subject complement is to reverse a sentence in which you have a demonstrative pronoun functioning as the object of a sentence. For example, if you say, this was my answer. This was my answer. In number 2 here, this is the subject of the sentence because it is what the sentence is talking about. What was my answer? We're talking about my answer. We're talking about this. Okay. What was my answer? This. What was this? My answer. What was my answer? This. What was this? My answer. What was my answer? This. Can you see that? So this is a demonstrative pronoun functioning as the subject of the sentence. Okay, the subject. Just inverse it now. Inverse it. You have something like number 3. My answer was this. Did you see that? So this, in this case, is the subject complement of this. It means this. What I'm saying is that this means the same thing as my answer. So what I'm trying to say is that for you to simply have a demonstrative pronoun function as the subject complement in a sentence, move the subject like this, the subject, move it to the end of the sentence, and move the initial complement forward, backwards. So you have something like, my answer was this. So what is the function of this? This is a demonstrative pronoun functioning as the complement, the subject complement of this. It means the same thing as my answer. Remember, that the subject complement is any writing in a sentence that means the same thing, that refers to the subject of a sentence. So in example 1 again, my answer was this. My answer was this. What is that this we're talking about? My answer. So this here is the subject complement, and that it means the same thing as my answer. So that is another function of the demonstrative pronoun. And of course, remember that a demonstrative adjective cannot function as subject complement. It cannot function as the object complement. It cannot function as the subject of a sentence. It cannot also function as the object of a sentence. So finally, another function of a demonstrative pronoun. A demonstrative pronoun can function as adverb of place. Adverb of place. And of course, remember that adverbs are words that modify a verb, that modify the action performed in a sentence in terms of place, in terms of time, in terms of reason, in terms of concession, in terms of degree, in terms of frequency, etc. Okay. So in this case, we want to consider this function, okay, in a way that we differentiate between demonstrative pronouns and demonstrative adjectives. Now, which of these can function as adverb of place? It is a demonstrative pronoun that can function as an adverb of place. A demonstrative adjective cannot function as the adverb of place in a sentence. Okay, so let's have examples. 1. They all came to this. She too. We went to that. We went to that. Now, they all came to where? To this. They came to this. They came to this. It's like you're saying they came to this house. We have a house here. We have another house here. So 2 houses. And we're confused. We're standing in front of the 2 houses and asking, where do they come to? And someone answers and says, they came to this. They came to where? This. So this in this case is an adverb of place. They all came to this. Where did they come to? This. This here is a demonstrative pronoun that has been used to replace a place. It could be school, it could be a house, it could be a hospital, it could be an office, whatever it is. They just came to this. They came to this. Where did they come to? They came to this. We went to that. We went to that. Oh, they came to this place. And we went to that. That could mean that house. It could mean that hospital. It could mean that restaurant. Okay? So remember that in this case, only demonstrative pronouns can function as the adverb of place in a sentence. So between demonstrative adjectives and demonstrative pronouns, only demonstrative pronouns can function as the adverb of place. As you can see here, a demonstrative adjective cannot function as the adverb of place. The only thing that a demonstrative adjective will do in a sentence is to point at a noun, is to modify a noun, is to describe a noun. So let's have a quick recap. What I've said so far is that we can determine the difference between demonstrative adjectives and demonstrative pronouns on 2 grounds. The first is to look at structural difference, and number 2 is to look at the functional difference. On the structural difference, we're looking at the arrangement, the appearance, the way that demonstrative adjective, the way that demonstrative pronoun will appear in a sentence. Structurally, a demonstrative pronoun will stand alone, will appear alone in a sentence without a noun. Whereas a demonstrative adjective cannot stand alone, cannot appear alone without the noun in a sentence. So structurally, the demonstrative adjective appears, then you see the noun it is pointing at, or the noun is pointed to, whereas you have the demonstrative pronoun standing alone. This belongs to me. What belongs to me? This demonstrative pronoun. Now, demonstrative adjective, this marker belongs to me. This marker. So you have this and you have marker. Demonstrative adjective. This belongs to me. This belongs to me. I'm not mentioning what that thing is. I'm just simply using the pronoun to replace the noun. So, and in terms of function, I looked at 5 things. First, the subject of a sentence, the object of a sentence, the object complement, the subject complement, and then adverb of place. So I said that for all of these 5 functions, only demonstrative pronouns can come to play. Between these two, only the demonstrative pronouns can function as the subject of a sentence, the object of a sentence, object complement, subject complement, and finally as adverb of place. With that, we have come to the end of this class. If you have any questions still, feel free to let me know in the comment. It's my delight to attend to all of your queries. Thanks for watching to this very end. See you in the next video. Bye for now.